perfects, yeah. It's the Studebaker. Yeah, you know, the one with the little doggy in the window that goes...
Carol Burnett's early life was far from the glamorous world of television she would later inhabit. Born in 1933 in San Antonio, Texas, she grew up surrounded by challenges. Her parents struggled with alcoholism, were unable to care for her fully, and the family moved multiple times in search of stability. At a very young age, Carol found herself feeling unwanted, unseen, and deeply aware of what it meant to live on the edge of survival. Eventually, she and her grandmother moved to Hollywood in 1940, but the hope of red carpet glamour proved false. Instead, they lived in a cramped boarding house, sharing one small room, with other tenants also battling poverty, addiction, and despair. Amid this bleak environment, Carol learned to protect herself through humor and performance. She invented a twin sister in her mind, someone confident, free, admired, and she acted out that character in the hallway, on the fire escape, even in front of the other tenants who believed she had a secret twin. That early instinct to perform, to escape through laughter, would become her foundation. She saw movies every Saturday, 2 tickets for 25 cents each, more than 10% of their weekly budget. And in the darkened theater, she glimpsed a different world, one of beauty, order, dance, and joy. At home, the reality returned, stealing toilet paper from the theater bathroom, counting pennies, making do. But these moments birthed something important, a recognition that laughter could shield and transform, and that acting might be more than a game. It might be a path. Carol's childhood pain, her sense of being overlooked and hungry for more than survival, shaped not just her drive, but her empathy. This early life context is important for understanding the moment in 1977 when she filmed a sketch that forced her to confront something too real, and changed her relationship not just with performance, but with pain. From those humble beginnings, Carol Burnett's rise in show business is remarkable. After high school, she anticipated studying journalism. Her mother had once wanted to write, but tuition proved a barrier. A mysterious benefactor paid her modest fee, no strings attached, and she entered UCLA. There, she took a theater elective that changed everything. Suddenly, she was audible, visible, funny, alive. She switched majors. Her talent made itself known. By the mid-1950s, she moved to New York with her then-boyfriend, working odd jobs, living in a women's boarding house and auditioning during the day. In 1959, she landed a breakout role in the off-Broadway show Once Upon a Mattress, playing Princess Wyfred, a loud, clumsy fairy tale mismatch. The show ran for 470 performances. After she left the cast, the show folded within a week. That moment confirmed she had become irreplaceable. Soon, she turned to television, and by 1967, her own variety show, The Carol Burnett Show, premiered on CBS. The show ran for 11 straight seasons, from 1967 to 1978, pulling in tens of millions of viewers each week, and earning awards, acclaim, and a reputation as a trailblazing female-led comedy program. The show mixed sketches, variety acts, guest stars, music, and wild improvisation, especially thanks to her collaborators like Tim Conway and Harvey Korman. Carol herself became known not just as a comedy star, but as one who brought warmth, vulnerability, and humanity to her work. She made people laugh, but beneath the laughter there was depth. Her own history of struggle lent authenticity to characters who felt real, flawed, and emotionally accessible. The stage, the studio audience, the lights, they became her domain. But it was also in this domain that something unexpected would happen. A sketch that was so emotionally charged, so reflective of her own past, that she would never watch it again. In February 1977, during the 10th season of The Carol Burnett Show, an episode aired that is now legendary for a very different reason. The show's recurring sketch series, The Family, featured Carol as Eunice Higgins, a high-strung, emotionally needy character locked in a fraught relationship with her mother and brother. In this particular installment, Eunice appears on a spoof of the talent show The Gong Show, hoping for a breakthrough. Instead, she is mocked, humiliated, and gonged off the stage. What sets the sketch apart from the usual comedy is its tone. There are no big punchlines, no sight gags, no exaggerated accents. Instead, we watch Eunice's face fall as the laughter dies. The camera pulls back slowly. There is a silence that lingers. According to reports, the crew members were near tears during filming. Audiences were stunned. Critics praised the segment as one of the most powerful moments in television sketch history. For Carol Burnett, though, the moment hit far deeper than its immediate impact. She later admitted the performance was too real. Eunice's pain felt like her own. The character's longing, Failure and disappointment mirrored Carol's childhood hunger. To be loved, to be seen, to have worth. Though the episode earned acclaim, Carol refused ever to watch it again. She reportedly removed it from reruns and has kept it at a distance for nearly 5 decades. The sketch stands not just as a highlight of her career, but as a turning point, a moment where a comedian confronted her own vulnerability in live performance, and recognized that laughter sometimes masks something far more fragile than it appears. Why would a successful, celebrated performer choose never to watch one of her own landmark works? In Carol Burnett's case, the answer lies in the collision between art and personal truth. The sketch stripped away the costume of comedy and exposed raw emotion. Eunice's moment of defeat wasn't just fiction, it became a mirror of Carol's private history. The girl in the boarding house, the child watching movies to forget, the woman who used laughter as armor. Carol once said she and her show were meant to make people forget their troubles, not live them again. Yet here was a sketch that flipped that mission. It reminded both performer and audience of pain, not escape. To laugh alongside someone is one thing. To feel their quiet despair in silence is another. For Carol, watching the sketch again might reopen old wounds. It may have felt too much like reliving rather than performing. Her refusal is not a rejection of the work, but an acknowledgement of its power. It reminds us that behind the public joy of comedy often lies hidden grief. That kind of honesty in entertainment is rare. The sketch became more than a segment. It became a statement on vulnerability, authenticity, and the cost of laughter. It taught viewers that even a comedian known for joy can carry a story too serious to revisit. In refusing to watch, Carol set a boundary, not from the art, but from the memory. Carol Burnett's journey, from a neglected child in Texas and Hollywood boarding houses to a television pioneer and icon, is one of resilience, creativity, and emotional truth. Her story reminds us that success doesn't erase struggle. Sometimes it reframes it. The 1977 sketch She Won't Watch stands as perhaps the most honest chapter of her career. A moment where performance and personal pain merged, leaving something unforgettable behind. Today, viewers and creators alike can draw a lesson from this. Comedy doesn't always mean forgetting. Sometimes it means remembering, reframed. When a performer dares to be vulnerable, the result can shake conventions, surprise audiences, and shift expectations. Carol's refusal to revisit the episode reminds us that some parts of our story are not for replay, but for quiet respect. And as new generations discover her work, whether the sketch shows up again in archival form or remains out of reach, they will find a legacy not just of laughter, but of truth. In an age where entertainment often feels polished and safe, Carol Burnett's moment of unsparing honesty stands out. It calls us to remember, behind the laughter there is life, and sometimes the bravest act is not performing, but letting others see you feel. Carol Burnett's journey to stardom began in unlikely and difficult circumstances. She was born on April 26, 1933 in San Antonio, Texas. From very early on, life taught her what it meant to feel invisible. Her parents both struggled with alcoholism and were unable to provide the stable home a child needs. Her father held down short-lived jobs at a movie theater. Her mother was emotionally absent because of the drink. By the time Carol was a toddler, she already sensed what it meant to be overlooked, to be on the outside. Eventually, she and her grandmother, Mabel White, left Texas and moved to Hollywood in 1940. But the dream of Hollywood was not what it looked like on screen. They lived in a boarding house, sharing a single cramped room among many other tenants who were battling poverty, mental illness, addiction, or simply hanging onto hope in the margins of Los Angeles. Life was unpredictable. There were weeks with just $20 to survive on. Barely enough for food, let alone comfort or dreams. Yet, in that bleak environment, Carol found something uplifting. Her grandmother's unconditional love. Mabel offered her safety and caring when none other could. And Carol discovered a way to protect herself, laughter. To escape the chaos around her, she invented a twin sister named Karen. Someone bold, confident, admired. She would run up a fire escape, change clothes, change her hair, and become Karen for a while before returning as Carol. The other adults, many of whom were themselves barely holding on, believed in the twins' existence. That speaks to both Carol's imaginative power and the yearning around her for something joyful. On Saturdays, she and her grandmother went to the movies. The tickets cost 25 cents each, more than 10% of their meager weekly income. In the dark theater, Carol glimpsed a world of stars, of dancing, of beauty and order. A sharp contrast to home. But the moment the lights came up and the credits rolled, they were back to scraping by, stealing toilet paper from theater restrooms because they simply couldn't afford it. Even at age 7, Carol knew the difference between survival and longing for more than mere food. She heard the roar of a Tarzan yell on screen and practiced it obsessively at home. It was just a game. But the breath control and timing she developed would become part of her comedy toolkit years later. These early experiences of pain, of being unseen, of needing to invent another self to survive, shaped Carol Burnett's sensitivity, her drive, and set the stage for the moment, decades later, when she would refuse to watch one particular piece of her own work. Die legend. From those humble, hard beginnings, Carol Burnett's rise in entertainment was remarkable, yet rooted in those early instincts. After high school, she hoped to study journalism, fulfilling her mother's unfulfilled ambition to write. But she didn't have the money. She needed $50 for tuition, roughly equivalent to about $600 today, and couldn't pay it. Then, mysteriously, a stranger, as she described it, paid the fee. No strings attached, just an act of kindness. With that, she entered UCLA and eventually switched from journalism to theater after one transformative elective. In that class, something inside her clicked. She was no longer shy or unseen. She could sing, act, make people laugh. Professors and classmates noted her talent. By the end of her freshman year, she was named Most Promising Newcomer in UCLA's theater program. That recognition was more than a title. It felt like validation. She decided to go to New York in 1954, even though she had never been there, with her boyfriend, Don Soyan, supported by a $1,000 gift from a millionaire shipbuilder under strict conditions. Never reveal his name, only use the money to get to New York and help someone else if they made it. That story echoes the pattern. Someone helped her when she couldn't help herself, and she pledged to pass that help on. In New York, she lived in a women's boarding house for 18 weeks, took odd jobs, auditioned during the day, and worked at night as a hat check girl. Then came the breakthrough. In 1959, she landed the lead in the satirical musical Once Upon a Mattress, playing Princess Wyfred, a loud, clumsy princess nobody had expected. The show ran 470 performances. When she left, the show collapsed in a week, a clear sign she had become essential. Television soon beckoned, and by September 11, 1967, The Carol Burnett Show premiered on CBS. The variety sketch comedy show ran for 11 seasons, until March 29, 1978. It became one of the most influential, featuring live comedy skits before a studio audience, and one of the first major variety shows led by a woman. It won 25 Primetime Emmys, and has been ranked on lists of the greatest TV shows of all time. Wikipedia +2 Varied +2. Her comedy wasn't just about laughter. It carried warmth, vulnerability, humanity. Her upbringing had taught her to listen to pain underneath the jokes, to see what made people tick. That dual gift of making people laugh while also bringing emotional truth to her characters positioned her for the moment when her art and her life would dangerously overlap. In 1977, during the 10th season of The Carol Burnett Show, one episode shook the foundation of what comedy meant for Carol Burnett. The episode is listed as Season 10, Episode 19, Family Show. Eunice gets her big break as a contestant on The Gong Show, which aired on February 12, 1977. Yidio +1. The recurring sketch series The Family, introduced in the 1973-74 season, featured Burnett as Eunice Higgins, a high-strung, emotionally volatile woman stuck in a messy relationship with her mother and husband. Wikipedia. In this particular installment, Eunice believes she has finally found her moment. She is auditioning on a spoof of a talent show, The Gong Show, hoping for fame and validation. Instead, she is mocked, humiliated, and gonged off the stage. There's no big punchline, no exaggerated accent, no silly movement. The camera pulls back slowly on Eunice's tear-streaked face. The lights fade. Silence fills the room. Crew members reportedly cried while filming. Critics called it a masterpiece. Audiences were stunned, varied. For Carol Burnett, though, it was far more than just a powerful sketch. She later admitted that the performance was too real. The pain expressed by Eunice in that moment was her own, or at least a reflection of her own childhood of unmet aspirations, of being ignored, of feeling unlovable. To make people laugh had been her mission, but here she had made people feel, and that quantum shift unsettled her. The episode earned acclaim, yet Carol Burnett has never watched it again. Not even once in nearly 50 years. She removed it from reruns and kept it distant. Why? Because for her it wasn't just comedy anymore. It was a mirror. Why would a superstar, who built a career on being seen, choose to never watch one of her defining performances? The answer lies in the collision between art and life, between performance and truth. For Carol Burnett, that sketch crossed a threshold. She once said that she and her show existed to make people forget their troubles, not relive them. But this sketch did the opposite. It forced the viewer, and the performer, to feel the trouble. When the character of Eunice stood on stage, rejected and defeated, Carol Burnett recognized that girl in her, who had sat in movie theaters to escape the chaos of a